Welcome back, everyone. Tonight we'll be diving into the second part of our Gemini home entertainment investigation. It's been a long one so far, but by the end of this video we will be completely up to date with the series, so I won't take too much of your time in this introduction. Before we begin, I just want to remind anyone new here that this is the third video in this Gemini series. In the first part of the investigation, we covered the first half of the video series, and recently I held a live stream of the Lethal Omen video game. So if you want a refresher, then I would suggest going back and watching those. To recap our previous investigations, Gemini Home Entertainment is an analog horror YouTube series created by Remy Abode. Each of the 16 videos on the channel are produced in short 5 to 10 minute long videos inspired by classic 1990s media outlets, like documentaries, home guides, presentations, and safety videos. In the world of Gemini, Earth has been invaded by aliens from a sentient planet called Iris, which is either the mutated form of Neptune or is hiding somewhere behind or near Neptune. Every time Neptune can be seen during Earth's orbit around the Sun, Iris has the ability to get closer to Earth and prey on people using its aliens. These aliens have come in 3 forms so far. The first kind of alien are the woodcrawlers, which are zombie-like creatures that invade people's homes through the floor during storms and turn people into followers of Iris. The second are the lights in the fields that also appear during these storms. The third is the most threatening. These are the tentacle monsters with glowing eyes that are buried extremely deep under the surface. We also know that these creatures are extremely intelligent, as they have the ability to corrupt the footage shown in these videos and any data a computer creates. We know that these aliens have been around since the 1930s, and the body-possessing woodcrawlers can hide in plain sight. Some went as far as to create summer camps like Moonlight Acres, where campers are sacrificed to the Iris during an event called the Lights in the Sky event. Although we know the Iris has been around since the 30s, we don't know how widespread these aliens are. Are they all over the world? Do governments know they exist? And will we ever find out who Gemini Home Entertainment is aligned with? These are the questions this next part will answer as we dig deeper, along with any new questions that may come up. With that, let's begin where we left off on the 8th video of Gemini Home Entertainment, Wilderness Survival Guide. Our first video begins with the famous Gemini logo. Then we get a nature shot of the moon where the title of this guide comes up. Our Wilderness Survival Guide is presented to us by a man named Jack Wilder, who literally has wild in his name. We're told we need these items for our basic equipment: water flask, non-perishable foods, first aid kit, matches, compass, and a knife, which are all normal things to bring. Then we are warned to not camp or hike in private hunting grounds, or we can be fined, or worse. We should avoid bears, cougars, and moose when we are out in the woods. If we do encounter them, we should stay calm and not run. Just keep our eyes on them and slowly back away. Next, we are shown some plants we should avoid. The first 2 are just normal plants, but the third is strange. It is called Nature's Mockery, and it is very odd looking. The presentation says that this strange plant causes hallucinations, sudden muscular paralysis, body disfigurement, and flesh decay. This isn't the first time we have seen this plant either, as it was present in the Lethal Omen video game. And based on that game, not only do these plants cause flesh decay, but are made of flesh themselves, which makes them 100 times creepier than before. Next, we are given sounds we should avoid. First, we hear a coyote howl, a cougar scream, but then we hear a sound that is, unfortunately, extremely familiar. This auditory hallucination is the same sound we heard in Lethal Omen right before Iris killed our character. Ooh, I think I see you. Alright, but you better have some wicked items, because I'm going to upgrade the shit out of this pistol. It is apparently some kind of bait for us to walk towards these aliens, and it's a pretty good bait. Most people would feel inclined to help someone like the shouting man. But we should avoid these sounds because if we can hear them, then they can hear us. Up next, we are going to learn how to make a campfire. We will need these supplies and follow these steps, and everything seems fine until this happens. This whole scene was shown to us in Lethal Omen, and we should know by now that if we see a man standing alone in a field shouting for help, then we need to run for our lives. Next, we are told what to do if we get infected through a wound. The first two treatments are normal, but the third is a big piece for this series. For the first time, we are given a way to combat the aliens if they attack us. It's not the silver bullet, but it's helpful to know that we can remove whatever turns us into a woodcrawler. And after that nightmare fuel, our survival guide ends as the video rolls to credits. So in this video, we have gained more knowledge about the aliens, and we know that they can grow like plants out of the ground and kill you by pricking you like a thorn. But luckily for this minor attack, we can rip out the foreign object out of our skin and be fine. So let's move on to our next video. This video is produced by the same company that created the storm safety tips back in part 1, Harbinge Technologies. Okay, so now we get to see this device from Harbinge Tech, and when I first saw the device, I sort of jumped out of my seat because this device was in the Lethal Omen video game in the entrance cabins to the camp. I had thought the small models were just printers, but we can find the device in the headphones for it while exploring. Now we get a diagram of the sleep image visualizer, and we learn that the helmet is actually made out of aluminum. In Storm Safety Tips and in Lethal Omen, this aluminum dome was supposed to be in our storm bunkers to help us survive when the Iris is nearby, but apparently they have another purpose as well. Next, we see an animation of how to plug in the connector cord, and this is another animation we saw during Lethal Omen while in the campers' cabins. After setup, we can turn on our computer and run the software that came with the device. The next sleep image we are shown is that of a small auditorium with some alien looking device in the center. Actually, after a second look, this might just be a planetarium. After that one, everything seemed to have worked with the device, but we get this ominous message that every image we see from our sleep is sent to and recorded by Harbinge Tech, which is very odd. But before our presentation ends, we get two more examples of the sleep image visualizer, but in them, they aren't images, they're videos, and we see this. The first video seems to be someone's recording of their room, and one of the mannequin people are watching over them until we hear the familiar sound of the door knock. The second video almost gave me Vietnam flashbacks to Lethal Omen, as we see the iris coming up and blocking the sunlit horizon, just like in the video game where we get killed by the planet. After those visuals, our presentation ends, and we have some new pieces being put on the table. Since the Lethal Omen gameplay, I was wondering when these mannequin-like people would show up in the video series. And here they are. Are these creatures aliens that might be spying on regular folk? Or maybe they only exist in human dreams because we have only seen them when we use the visualizer. And despite them just hanging around people while they sleep, they seem to be in league with the iris based on the knocking on the door and the field. Let's try to find out more about what's going on by moving on to the next video. Our third video was created by a new company named Optica Video, whose name is continuing the creepy theme of eyes. The video is calling for bored kids looking to play some games, and then we get the title card for the video presentation. The first game we play is hide and go seek, and we learn the basic rules for it. Then we get some lighthearted footage of the game being played in a 90s decorated home. This game's rules are a little too similar to the experiences we've been having, with the enemy titled It freezing people in place. This similarity is driven home by the menacing line, "When all the runners are frozen, it wins." The next game we learn is a game called Sardines, which is a kids game that I have never heard of. If you've played this game growing up, let me know in the comments, because I originally thought that this may have been a game that the video series created. The rules of Sardines are the same as hide and go seek, except there is only one hider and the rest are seekers. When a seeker finds the hider, the seeker has to try and hide with them. Progressively over time, all but one seeker remains as everyone is hiding in the same spot. Again, we get a very ominous line at the end of the demonstration. The game ends when everyone is hiding. The last game we learn about has an immediate red flag in the title, as it is called Feed the Woods, which is fucking terrifying. All players wait until it is very dark and our parents have fallen asleep. We then should sneak outside and very quietly gather all of our friends. We go into the woods until we can't see the lights anymore and scream at the top of our lungs. After that horrifying montage, I want to quickly make a note that this crying child's face was revealed to us in Lethal Omen when we tried to escape Moonlight Acres by following the road. And in the next scene, we see the same abandoned cop car on the side of the road just like in the video game. We get our last terrifying rule for the game, which is, the game ends when the forest is fed. Our presentation ends with a shot of Earth, and the arrow from throughout the video points at it saying, "Found you." So using the instructions of the children's game, we have a few more rules to these aliens that are preying on humans. They are clearly attached to nature, fields, forests, oceans, underground. Whatever these aliens are, they seem almost bounded to the plant life on Earth. Just like in Wilderness Survival with the weird alien plant, Nature's Mockery. All of this kind of makes more sense for the reasons why these aliens have to lure humans into the forest with lights and people screaming for help. With that, our video ends and we can move on to the next one. This video starts off by saying it was made by the Northern Alberta Mining and Development Company. The company has made this video to demonstrate their new mining equipment, a tunneler robot that can dig deep under the surface while being controlled by an operator. We follow the robot as it drills 31 feet or meters into the earth. We follow the robot's adventure underground until we hear the terrifying clicking noise of a woodcrawler. During the attack, it had been dragged over another 100 feet underground, where it seems it has landed in some kind of cave. As it explores on, it stops and captures another woodcrawler lurking in the shadows. We get a piece of information about the aliens here. Apparently there are things deep underground that act as a living heart for the alien plant life that digs up to the surface in the forms of the tentacles, the woodcrawlers, and the plants called Nature's Mockery. At 150 feet deep, a robot seems to spot some of these blood sacs. Until this happens. The robot runs again until it is caught and put into some kind of bloody tangle of webs. Then we are told shifting tendons shape anatomy, mutation of the heart. We get a close-up of what looks like another tentacle monster being birthed from the red flesh. Either it's a birth or these aliens can travel through the red flesh up to the surface by corrupting nature. Our signal cuts out as the robot is dragged to a depth of 579 feet and counting. Then our video ends. So more elements from the Lethal Omen video game are being revealed to us in these videos. So I'm very happy to have played that game before continuing into the second part. During the true ending for Lethal Omen, our character is sacrificed and brought to some kind of nightmare realm filled with these aliens. During the walk, we read signs that say the same things as these videos, which I'm guessing is kind of like the official rules of the aliens. We know these monsters are starting off very deep underground and are literally corrupting nature in order to root their way to the surface. When breaking the surface, these aliens need to feed. They do so in almost an evolutionary way by making poisonous plants and luring prey like us humans into the woods and fields alone. Once they get a hold of us, they will turn us into fleshy vehicles to blend into society so they can make it easier to feed the underground system. We've come a long way from this first video in the series introducing us to the woodcrawlers, and learning more about these aliens have only made them even more terrifying. But there is still plenty more information to get through in this part. Our next video is called Deep Root Disease. It begins with almost no explanation of what causes deep root disease, but based on Wilderness Survival Guide, I can guess it's probably nature's mockery. The disease begins when roots begin to form from the underside of bulbs at the beginning of the rooting stage. The roots will lose color and grow quickly as time goes on. They will continue to grow through our skin until they contact our bones. When they touch bone, they can spread wherever they want even faster. Next, we are shown a way an individual could contract deep root disease. Then we are shown what bulbs look like in our skin, and it's disgusting to think about. These bulbs look like holes or dots in our skin. These continue to grow until they eventually sprout. Next, we are told how to diagnose someone with it, by checking these things. Then ask them these things. If they match some of these results, then we need to take protective measures to ensure our safety. We are then showed a sprout starting to grow if left unchecked. So not only are these sprouts occurring in our bodies, but they can reach the surface in the form of tentacles, which we've seen throughout the video so far, going as far as to sneak into someone's home and drag them from their bed. Let's move on to our next video. Monthly Progress Report is the title of this next entry. This presentation we see the return of Regnat Computing, and we had clued in on one of their monthly progress reports. Hopefully, after all the confusion and encryption with all the Regnat products before, we will learn something about this important company in the middle of Gemini home entertainment. The presentation's introduction starts off with some distortion, but after we get through it, we are introduced to a new project being worked on by Regnat, Project Infrared, as well as the lead scientist in charge of it. Then we are told in the report that Project Infrared is 84% complete, and that the client, whoever that is active and communication between them is available. Apparently, Project Infrared is some kind of cooperation between Regnad and a third party in order to predict and prevent technology failures, as well as to advance in the field of technological discovery. Our video transitions to some info about the computer processing and how far it has come in a matter of months. We then see these new processing abilities in the form of assets from the Lethal Omen video game Regnad designed. We are then told about the ACL division of Regnad, where they are running simulations with the company's client. After more briefing, we are then taken to Regnad's monitor room, where we learn who the client that the company is working with is. Apparently, ACL is using a bunch of computers that are corrupted by the spores and sprouts the previous videos warned us about. Within moments, we come to find out that the client Regnad is working with is in fact the alien planet Iris, and as ACL gives Iris prompts to respond to, we see the return of dialogue boxes from the artificial intelligence computing video in the first part. When prompted with Earth, Iris says, When prompted with the word Moonlight, Iris says, When prompted with Jack, the name from the children's story the Iris created before, the alien planet says, After the demonstration, our monthly report from Regnad Computing begins to close out, but not before giving us this horrifying piece of info. We expect to meet our client in person in as little as 7 months. After that, our video ends and we have learned a lot more about some of the companies presented in the world of Gemini home entertainment. So there is definitely a group of non-corrupted humans that know about the Iris and have been attempting to contact it all this time. And I'm willing to propose that this group of people have been around since the 1930s and were the men in black that visited Camp Moonlight Acres. And that image of the supposed planetarium earlier might mean that the subject using the sleep image visualizer was a member, and that was a picture from inside the Regnad Computing offices. So not only are woodcrawlers slowly turning a few people into mindless zombies for Iris, there is an entire group of scientists willing to let the iris corrupt nature for the sake of learning from it. Gemini, Regnad, Harbinge, we the viewer thought these videos were just corrupted by aliens, but as of right now, I'm not so sure. These feel more like training videos for scientists in the organization. We are learning about Iris and catching up to speed before the in-person meeting with Iris in 7 months. But I want to see if my theory has any weight to it, so let's keep pushing through these last 3 videos. The next one on the channel is Christmas Eve Party, and it was actually posted on December 25th, 2020, almost like a holiday special episode for the series. This video is not our standard presentation, but rather a collection of home movies taken by 3 young adults videotaping their Christmas party in a cabin in the woods. Obviously, the forest was hungry because our partygoers are attacked by the woodcrawlers, and at the end of the attack we see a snapshot of the cabin, the 2 male victims, and a woman named Mary that we can assume has been taken or eaten by the woods. Will this cabin come into play in the future? I'm not so sure, but this video pretty much drives home the point that we should not go anywhere near the woods. The next video is back to the normal format in Home Invasion Help, which starts out pretty much already corrupted and distorted. We get the return of Optica video, and based on games for kids, we can assume that this guide is not going to be very helpful for keeping us safe. We are told that this guide will help us prepare for a home invasion, which for brevity's sake, I'm going to assume we aren't talking about your average robber, and that we are preparing for woodcrawlers and anything else from the woods. First, we got to make sure windows and doors are shut and locked, making it difficult for intruders to get in. Then we learned that any security systems we bought to protect our home will most likely be destroyed by the intruders. Since the intruders normally attack at night, we need some kind of light source to help hold them back. After this, the video's direction very subtly shifts with this information. The wordage here makes the video seem like it's being made for whoever is breaking into the house, rather than whoever is inside. This is even clearer when the video suggests knocking on the door in order to trick the prey inside to letting us in, which from past videos, we know is a method used by the woodcrawlers to be let inside. If this doesn't work, then we are told to burrow under the house in order to get in from under the floorboards, which is a reoccurring strategy we have seen since the very first video. Next, it will explain to us what to do once inside. With the return of the mannequin and the steps of the video, we can finally try to put some meaning behind the mannequin people. Perhaps this is how the aliens see us humans, and whenever in the past they have come up, we are being shown prey for these creatures. The video also mentions the process in which the prey is caught, which is by proboscis? I'm not sure. As proboscis is the way creatures shoot out tubular mouths used for sucking and feeding, which, after seeing these roots and tendons breaking into people's houses, we can guess those are directly for that purpose. Our video then cuts from the presentation to what looks like more camera footage from someone breaking into the house. We follow him through this quiet, dark house, which might be the same one from Games for Kids now that I watch this video again. We hear some noises rattling through the house, but don't see anything except for some of the fleshy tendons that seem to corrupt nature. Until our cameraman walks into this room, where we finally get some closure for what happens when deep root disease infects you, and what you become. This was once a human, and now it has been completely corrupted by the alien infection used by the tentacle monsters and the woodcrawlers. And the worst part about it is that even without bones, skin, and organs, the human is left alive and even acknowledges the presence of our cameraman. Our intruder eventually decides to try and escape the house, but is caught by the tendons as his camera catches him being thrown onto the floor and being attacked before the video cuts to its end credits. This planet called Iris is clearly not interested in wiping out humanity. It wants to corrupt the Earth itself. Us humans just happen to be in the way of that goal, which is truly frightening to think about. At this moment, how can we even have hope for the world of Gemini home entertainment? Well, there's always hope as long as the series keeps going. And there is that scheduled in-person event with Iris coming up. Perhaps we will learn something that will actually help us against whatever Iris is. And at first, this was going to be the end of the video, but while editing part 1, I hadn't realized that it had been 7 months since monthly progress report. So we still have one more video to cover before we are completely caught up in the world of Gemini home entertainment. The video begins with the Gemini home entertainment logo being so corrupted that it isn't even recognizable in the beginning. We are shown the Geneva production company has returned to make this educational tape, but I'm not so sure if this is another company that is in on the operation. After that, we learn about the CRUSADER 5 planet probe and how it has returned after a 12-year mission and flown by several planets in our solar system. Our presentation cuts out and it seems that the CRUSADER is retelling an incident that occurred while on its flight path. We see photos of Jupiter and Saturn as well as their moons before reaching Neptune. After seeing some photos of Neptune's moons, we know something is not right with this planet, as moons are being sewn together with alien flesh. Then the CRUSADER enters the orbit of Iris, and we are shown the piles of flesh the planet calls moons, which are all named after some sort of body anatomy function like umbilic and macula. We then watch a diagram acting as a map try to path where the CRUSADER is inside the Iris. And of course, after seeing the photos from inside, we see more of the spores that our mining robot saw when it descended under the Earth. We then get pictures of the so-called spines of the planet, which are like the largest roots keeping the living organism alive. After that, we are told that the Crusader lost signal for 7 months, just like the scientists at Regnaz said it would. And after those 7 months, the Crusader magically re-enters Earth's orbit to return home. Our presentation returns to its end credits, and we are told who knows what's in store for Earth next, which is honestly a better wrap-up for this video than I could write. But we need to talk about what the Crusader found inside the mind of the iris. Everything alien, from the plants, the forests, the creatures, the sprouts, the tendons, everything is connected to the iris, like a hive mind. From its core consciousness millions of miles away, it can see through its corruption the victims it plans on taking to corrupt. So just like in all these nature videos, we can guess that these aren't living monsters that are corrupting humanity, but this invasion of Earth is more similar to an infection that is slowly spreading under Earth. And just now, in the world of Gemini Home Entertainment, they are beginning to corrupt the surface as well, starting in the dense forest where there is a lot of nature for the iris to use. And all this time, scientists have known about this but haven't done anything because the iris has been giving them technological advancements, which ironically have created the mediums to tell this story so far. With that, we are completely caught up with Gemini Home Entertainment, and we can draw some conclusions about this series, hopefully before the channel posts another video. I love this series, and with the rise of analog horror becoming a popular way to tell these scary stories, it has really entertained a niche audience of people like you and me, who want to be scared, but also want to put the pieces of a larger narrative together. It has been awesome to really dive into this world Remy Abode created, and I hope more people give this series attention. So I will remind you before I close this video out to please go subscribe to Gemini and watch this series for yourself. Although it feels like an end, I doubt this series is close to being over with. There's just so much possibility in the world that has been created, and I think fans of this series really want more puzzles to put together. But that's all there is for me to cover as of finishing the editing of this video. I don't think I will make a part 3 for this explanation series until Gemini has like 3 or 4 more videos to cover, but I will be watching eagerly until that point, and I suggest all of you do the same. With tonight's investigations at a close, I just want to quickly remind you that Pagan Valley is still on track to break that 1,000 subscriber milestone, so if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to leave a comment about Gemini Home Entertainment down in the comments. I've really grown to like reading your comments because they've been so supportive and positive. Anyway, this has been Pagan Valley, and I wish you all a good night.